Discover the 8 surprising carbs over 60 must avoid and 4 incredible ones to transform your health. The words blared from the screen, each flashing letter tightening the knot in Martha's stomach. She dropped her phone onto the kitchen counter, her heart racing. Just last week, the doctor delivered the news, pre-diabetes, a phrase punctuated by a heavy silence. No starches, less sugar, healthier choices. How could she abandon the southern comfort food that shaped her family's identity? Those bowls of collard greens and fried chicken whispered memories of celebrations, laughter, and shared love, all paving the way to this moment of anguish. Standing in her quaint kitchen, the scent of spices lingering in her mind, she felt trapped. A lifelong advocate for indulgent meals, a grandmother whose essence was tied to feeding her loved ones, Martha grappled with the burden of choice. Should she evolve, sacrificing the recipes that had become the heart of family gatherings, or hold tight to her traditions, risking her health? She opened the kitchen drawer, pushing aside the vibrant recipe cards filled with little notations from her daughters. They would often tease her for hoarding recipes, but those were the very symbols of her love. Her body clenched with the weight of it all. How could anyone understand that food was more than just fuel to her? It was legacy, joy, connection. The thought that she might need to rework her beloved meals churned unease within her. Every inch of her kitchen felt like a battleground, a place where fear and love collided. Before she could linger too long in her spiraling thoughts, Martha's eye caught movement from the attic store, the promise of forgotten treasures. Dust danced in the sunlight as she clambered up the stairs, propelled by the hope of finding solace in the past. She tugged at the old wooden chest, the latch creaking like her bones. Inside, an assortment of family relics nestled together. The faded cookbook lay proudly on top, cloaked in dust yet pulsating with history. Curiosity piqued, she brushed it off, feeling an electric current of connection. This book could harbor the answers she sought. With careful fingers, she turned the fragile pages, uncovering recipes adorned with nutrition, zesty vegetables, and whole grains, reminders that her ancestors used innovation to adapt to their times. Here were familiar rhythms interwoven with health, each line a heartbeat of her lineage. Yet mixed with wonder was apprehension. Would their family embrace this change? Would they scoff at her attempt to blend the past with the present? Internal conflict churned dangerously, mirroring the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. Her daughter, once her strongest ally in the kitchen, was now an outspoken advocate for healthy living, an embodiment of the ideals Martha couldn't fully accept. Memories swirled, thoughts of their last family dinner, filled with laughter until they became whispers of disagreement. Conversations no longer flowed with warmth. They dripped with caution. Just as she was ready to take the plunge and reach out, the silence around her deepened, forcing her to confront the daunting truth. She craved acceptance, but at what cost? Her hands trembled as she toyed with the thought at shared meals filled with the new instead of the old. Then the fleeting notion of loneliness crept in. If she failed, if this meal went unseen as a bridge to understanding and connection, was she losing both her family and herself? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The weight of her decision crushed her, each option pulling at her heart with competing desires. Then, amidst her eternal tumult, a single photograph caught her eye. A family barbecue from years ago, smiles captured forever, the food scattered like confetti around love and laughter. As nostalgia swelled within her, Martha's heart tugged with longing. Could she redefine food's role in their family to reflect both her love and new health needs? As she prepared to invite her daughter for a dinner that would require vulnerability, she felt the air thicken with uncertainty and fear. Would they open their hearts and minds to her cooking transformation? Or would her attempts push them further apart? The stakes felt higher than ever, and with a heavy heart, Martha found herself questioning if love could truly encompass change. The night loomed before her, full of possibility, yet shrouded in dread, a delicate dance of hope and fear waiting to unfold. Martha's hands shook as she reached for her phone, its screen illuminating the dim kitchen. The recipe gatherings had always been chaotic but joyous. What would happen to those cherished moments if she changed everything? She envisioned the disapproving looks from her family when she served them a meal without the time-honored delight of mac and cheese or buttery cornbread. Would they see her attempts to pivot towards health as a betrayal or a misguided effort? With determination flickering beneath her fear, she began drafting a menu that deftly combined new healthy elements with familiar tastes.
Instead of fried chicken, she envisioned grilled chicken marinated in herbs and citrus. Fresh, colorful vegetables served as vibrant accompaniments to balance the plate. The aroma of her fusion recipe enveloped her senses, suddenly intoxicating and exhilarating. However, creativity was intermingled with a paralyzing self-doubt.
Martha lingered over the decision to incorporate quinoa into her beloved dishes, worried they would reject her venture before they even took a bite. How could she repurpose traditions without disassembling the very essence that food held for their family? From those first bites of her mother's gumbo to the traditional potlucks each July, a tapestry was woven through flavors, scents, and memories. The entire fabric of her family's history was interlinked with every meal shared. Clarity came as she gripped the cookbook in her hand, remembering the recipes that intermixed wholesomeness and flavor generations before. Inspiration surged through her veins. Her ancestors had adapted their culinary traditions to thrive in their environments. What was stopping her? After hours of contemplation, she set the date. She'd prepare the meal Friday evening, giving herself just enough time to experiment and refine her selections. A sense of purpose ignited within her, awakening an unacknowledged passion for creating meals that honored the past while embracing the present. Slowly, the kitchen started to feel like a familiar sanctuary again, rather than a battleground. The days that followed were both exhilarating and tumultuous. As Wednesday unfolded, Martha cleared her calendar, focusing all her energy toward grocery shopping and recipe testing. She taught herself about wholesome alternatives, sneaking in chickpeas to add protein, using sweet potatoes instead of russets, and even conjuring a dessert that replaced traditional sugar with coconut nectar. Her spirits soared with each new experiment. She felt herself drawing nearer to the transformation she desired. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was her anxiety about how her family would receive her culinary innovations. Could it be that her family's reliance on tradition had stifled their willingness to embrace healthier options? Would they stand firmly in their beliefs, resisting change, even if it was born of love and concern for their health? As the Friday evening approached, delving into the depths of personal conviction, Martha gathered her courage to face the truth. Arranging the dining area, she envisioned the din of voices harmonizing through laughter, a clinking of cutlery punctuating vibrant discussions. Yet a part of her remained cautious, tethered to the fear of judgment. Would this night be filled with tension, or would it be a step toward a new understanding? Just before the doorbell rang, her heart quickened. The moment had arrived. This gathering was pivotal, not just for her family, but for her own journey of self-reinvention. She could either stand firm, confident in her evolution, or succumb to the fear of dissent. For the first time in decades, she felt the weight of expectation differentiating between her songs of the past and her melodies for the future. With the door opening, Martha drew a deep breath. Everything hinged on this pivotal intersection of past and present, love and change. Would her beloved family join her on this new culinary adventure? Or would the night unravel the fabric of their shared history? The air simmered with possibilities, laden with the bittersweet aroma of hope and anxiety. As she held the platter in hand, ready to serve her first new creation, Martha realized she wasn't just presenting a meal, she was inviting them to share in a journey, a step toward transforming how they saw family, love, and ultimately themselves. The door swung open, and Martha felt an electric charge ripple through the air as her family stepped inside. Their familiar faces lit up the once muted kitchen, now alive with the vibrant colors of her carefully prepared dishes. Dining chairs scraped against the floor, laughter cut through the tension, and for a fleeting moment it seemed like everything would unfold perfectly. As they settled, Martha studied their expressions, searching for hints of acceptance or surprise. She struggled to conceal her anxiety. Each polite smile felt like a tightrope she walked, balancing between hope and fear. Serving the grilled chicken first, she held her breath, watching their reactions. "Interesting twist, Martha," her brother Tom remarked, eyeing the quinoa stuffed peppers with a raised eyebrow. Martha braced herself, keenly aware that the night could spiral in an unanticipated direction. With each dish, she narrated the story behind her choices, the heirloom ingredients from family farms, the attention paid to health. But curiosity soon gave way to skepticism. Tom took a bite and frowned. "What's wrong with just making what we love instead of this?" The word "this" stung deeper than any casual comment, as if he had dismissed not just the food, but the effort and intention that had filled her week. She felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. She had envisioned this night as a celebration, a personal evolution.
Yet here was a harsh confrontation of her family versus her ideals. Suppressing her frustration, she reminded herself that change rarely arrived neatly packaged. "I know it's different," she replied, her voice steady, "but I want to share something that nourishes not just our memories, but our bodies too." "Can't we just enjoy life?" her sister interjected, still chewing slowly. "Seems like we can't have a moment without someone presenting alternatives." Did they view her not as a pioneer, but rather as a purveyor of unwelcome change? Martha's pulse quickened, tracing the wall of resistance building around her. She felt the flicker of doubt return, whispering the old refrain. Maybe she had overstepped. Yet in the core of her being, she sensed a resolve stirring. Martha's gaze shifted to her mother, whose expression was unreadable. "Remember your father's heart issues?" she prompted gently, the words breaking like glass between them. "This isn't just about change, it's about life. I care about our health, our future. We can enjoy food while also taking care of ourselves."
But her mother merely nodded, eyes clouding with a burden of nostalgia, perhaps thinking of family dinners past, where butter and comfort had reigned supreme. A silence stretched, creeping into every corner of the room as the tension thickened. Discontent ebbed and flowed. Fueled by both emerging frustration and determination, Martha planted her feet firmly. This was her moment, her narrative, not just the family's indifferent plot twist. What I'm creating tonight is an invitation, an opportunity to reinvent our experiences together. It's okay to have traditional meals, but can we also embrace new things? Don't we owe ourselves the chance to adapt? Tom's gaze softened. You might be right, but can you blame us for wanting to cling to familiarity? Martha felt the shift, the glimmer of realization beginning to spark within the room. Perhaps it wasn't a battle, it was a conversation. They were all testing the waters of change, each grappling with underlying fears. As her family engaged more, sharing stories of favorite old recipes and pairing them with her new creations, she detected another layer unfolding, a shared vulnerability that even familiar food couldn't cover. They thus crafted a relationship between past and present, a tableau shifting with the weight of both joy and apprehension. Yet, as they discussed their tastes and dislikes, Martha couldn't shake the feeling of being at a crossroads. Could she really embody this new path of change within traditions so deeply seated in her family? Or would this connection dissolve into tension with every attempt she made? By dessert, a healthier chocolate mousse made with avocados, the tension had transformed into curiosity, but the what next question loomed in the air like smoke, a challenge she was now ready to confront. As laughter began to dance through the room once more, Martha felt the ground shift under her feet, grounding her in this evolution. She had accomplished an initial task, but perhaps the real journey had only just begun. "What's next, Martha? More surprises?" Tom grinned teasingly, a spark of acceptance igniting a flicker of hope in her heart. But she was aware now, more than ever, embracing this recalibrated family bond would require far more than a single meal. Real growth calls for sustained dialogue through the messiness of love and life. What new recipe, what additional challenge must she now face? The complexity of this unfolding evolution was only just beginning to form. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a warm amber light across the kitchen as Martha began to tidy up. Each dish and glass that she washed served as a moment of reflection, like beads strung along a finely woven thread of thought. Tonight had been a success, yet the road ahead loomed ahead like a winding path into the fog. Martha paused, the dishcloth draped across her shoulder, and glanced at the remnants of the meal. To many, a gathered family around a table of food meant comfort. To her, it now represented the first step into unpredictable territory. Could she continue to bridge her family's need for tradition with her passion for health? The question lingered, ripe with possibility, yet heavy with doubt. "I have to map it out," she murmured to herself, picturing a conceptual diagram in her mind, linking recipes, traditions, and health benefits. Every family dinner was like a new project, and she was the lead, navigating a complex landscape of expectations and cravings. An idea sparked. Maybe she needed to turn this into something more than just occasional dinners. With a wave of determination, Martha retrieved her laptop from the cluttered table and opened a blank document. "Let's create an ongoing dialogue," she thought, feeling the rush of empowerment that comes with taking the first step. She envisioned weekly meals, each crafted with intention, each a conversation starter. Week 1, reinventing classic comfort foods, she began typing, her fingers racing to keep up with her thoughts. How can we honor our past while inviting healthy changes? As she challenged herself, Martha could picture the family engaging over each dish, sharing their thoughts not just about taste, but about the importance of health in their lives. But could this concept actually resonate with her family members who were so deeply rooted in the familiar? Doubt crept in, wrapping around her resoluteness. What if this pushes them away, she pondered, a chilling fear permeating her thoughts. There was no guarantee they would be receptive. Past experiences echoed in her mind, voices of cynicism and criticism rising to meet the uncertain tones of her excitement. Shoving her doubts aside, she researched creative ways to involve her family, from cooking together to mixing family stories into the new recipes they would try. As she filled her document with ideas, a thrill coursed through her. The project could not only transform their meals, but also shift the dynamics of their relationships. Yet something held her back. How would she approach her family with her ambitious plan? Anxiety gripped her as she considered their various reactions. Would they see this as another imposition, or would they willingly jump into this exploration of flavors, tradition, and health? As if anticipating her conflict, her phone buzzed. It was a text from her sister, asking for the chocolate mousse recipe. A wave of warmth washed over her. Perhaps the better question was not whether they'd accept her changes, but rather how she could create a space where they'd feel secure enough to explore with her. The thought fueled her determination. A clearer vision unfolded before her. Let's not just share meals, let's build memories through the evolution of our culinary traditions. With renewed purpose, Martha closed her laptop and grabbed her notebook. She sketched out a calendar, envisioning monthly themes that reflected both her family's favorites and her innovative spins, a tapestry woven with love, tradition, and optimism. But beneath this excitement lurked an important realization. Martha was not merely fighting to overhaul dinners. She was rewriting her narrative in the family dynamic. This venture demanded more than recipes. It called for constant negotiation and emotional intelligence, leading a family through change. As she finalized the details, Martha felt a palpable shift in her mindset. This wasn't about imposing her views, but rather sparking a collaborative exploration. But would her family be ready for this journey into the unknown? Just as she deliberated over her next steps, the thought of the upcoming family gathering loomed in the back of her mind. Could she unveil this plan then, turning the dinner into both a platform for connection and an opportunity for dialogue? The moment felt electric, a crossroads where past and present danced in tandem, promising growth. Martha smiled subtly, sensing that her path was anchoring itself as both a personal and familial evolution. As the clock ticked on, she took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow marks the beginning of transformation." Yet another question lingered with graceful urgency. Would she have the courage to share her idea with her family, knowing it could swing either way? Only time would tell. The next morning dawned crisp and bright, a stark contrast to the swirling thoughts that clung to Martha from the night before. She brewed her coffee, the rich aroma swirling around her like a warm embrace, but the comforting scent did little to quell her uncertainty. The family gathering loomed closer, and with it, her resolve both flickered and ignited. She sat at the kitchen table, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting in her eyes. Today was the day she would set her vision in motion. But how to launch that leap? The proposal of change birthed anxiety, yet the thought of maintaining the status quo filled her with discontent. As she stared at the calendar she had sketched out, each week annotated with themes, recipes, and goals, her mind raced through remote possibilities. Martha picked up her notebook, flipping through her pages, and discovered a list of potential dishes she had brainstormed. She imagined tender word exchanges occurring over her interpretation of shepherd's pie, a warm comfort food made with sweet potatoes instead of starchy white ones, mingled with spiced lentils for protein. It could be a conversation starter, she whispered, as if testing the weight of her words. But silence filled her kitchen, and it echoed the worries thrumming in her chest. What if her family clung stubbornly to their old ways, spurning her attempts and reflecting her fears back at her? The thought was paralyzing.
She could almost hear her brother's dismissive laugh, carrying more weight than even her father's steadfast silence. Her heart raced, prompting her to take action. She daydreamed about the evening, a gathering punctuated by the vibrant colors and scents of her reinvented dishes. No longer would she shy away from the challenge presented by her family's ingrained expectations. It was her turn to take the lead, not just as the cook, but as a facilitator of shared experiences. Driven by her adrenaline, Martha pulled out her phone and shot a quick message to her sister. "What do you think about bringing your famous casserole to dinner? Maybe we can swap some traditional recipes." A diverse exchange could open the door to dialogue, she reasoned, even if it felt somewhat timid. As she pressed send, a rush of relief flooded her, momentarily dispelling the tension. But just as quickly, doubt resurfaced. Would her sister feel challenged or insignificant? Perhaps it would deepen the chasm between them instead of forging connections. The clock ticked, and Martha recognized she needed more preparation, a safety net to bolster her confidence. She decided to make a list of outcomes, possible scenarios that could arise during the dinner. Each situation she mapped out granted her some semblance of control over the unpredictable currents she was preparing to navigate. What if the family adored the healthier options? What if they vehemently opposed them? Anticipating their reactions felt like an invaluable tool. With each possibility she penned down, Martha also tapped into her emotional resources, items that spoke of courage, resilience, and the desire for family cohesion. These weren't just meals. They were invitations to embark on a collective journey that could deepen their understanding of one another. After a whirlwind session of preparation, Martha felt a surge of adrenaline. She had shifted her mindset, transforming from a cook into a leader intent on guiding her family through uncharted waters. This was about nurturing a legacy of health that the family could enjoy together, one meal at a time, and she would embrace this role wholeheartedly. As evening neared and the light softened, casting long shadows within her kitchen, the moment of truth began to loom larger and more vivid in her mind. With the gathering set for just a few hours away, a palpable exhilaration surged through her, equal parts anticipation and trepidation. Could she rely on her family's innate curiosity and love to carry them through this transformative dinner? With one final glance at her notes and recipes, Martha's pulse quickened. She stood tall, chest unfurling like a sail catching the wind. The time of showing courage had arrived. What repercussions would her choices yield? The dinner would either solidify their bond or cast shadows over the fabric of familiarity they shared.
As she turned the pages of her meticulously crafted plan, the questions trailed her thoughts, shifting like the last rays of sunlight. Would her love of health translate into harmony, or would her dreams fade into the labyrinth of family skepticism? Only the evening's conversation held the answer, an unfolding story poised to challenge her at every corner. Martha set the beautifully arranged table, every detail polished to reflect the care she had put into this evening. The dishes she meticulously prepared sparkled above the white linen tablecloth, a vivid palette of colors that echoed her determination. She arranged the shepherd's pie, its golden brown top emanating warmth, as her heart raced with trepidation. Would the vibrant presentation of her healthier dishes be enough to invite open-mindedness from her family? She glanced at the clock. Time was slipping through her fingers. She hadn't started preparing for the wave of questions that might come her way. Each tick resounded in her ears, amplifying her mounting anxiety. As the doorbell rang, Martha's breath hitched in her throat. Opening the door, her sister stood with a casserole in hand, a familiar grin plastered across her face. The air filled with an undercurrent of familiarity, but static electricity crackled between them, an unspoken tension that shadowed their shared history. Feeling slightly overwhelmed, Martha forced herself to smile and welcomed her sister inside. "Smells amazing in here," her sister exclaimed, casting her eyes over the inviting spread. Martha's affirmation felt like a fragile thread, barely keeping their history at bay. She treaded carefully, mindful of every word she might say. "Thanks, I thought we could try some healthier twists tonight." Her sister's brow furrowed, and a moment of silence lingered before Martha continued. "I'm excited to hear what you think. I know you're familiar with all of this." The weight of uncertainty hung thick in their conversation, a pendulum swinging between curiosity and skepticism. As other family members arrived, the atmosphere turned electric, a mix of laughter and apprehension weaving through the gathering. As everyone settled at the table, Martha felt that familiar flutter in her stomach morph into a steely resolve. She initiated the meal with a toast, raising her glass, to new beginnings and to trying something different together. Gathered around the table, the laughter faded momentarily, eyes darting among the dishes. Her brother, with a raised eyebrow, scooped to the edge of the shepherd's pie. "What's this?" he asked, an edge of skepticism in his tone. "It's adapted, sweet potatoes and lentils instead of regular potatoes and beef," Martha explained, catching a whiff of her own nerve-induced perspiration. His scrutiny cast a shadow over her conviction, but she pressed on. "I thought it would be a good way to explore different seasonings and textures, healthier without sacrificing flavor."
She served her brother a portion, the solid evidence of her intentions on the plate. As he took his first bite, a suffocating silence enveloped the table. "Wow," he muttered, eyes widening. "This is actually really good." Martha's heart soared, yet apprehension lingered. Would it be enough? She watched her family tentatively serve themselves, each movement reflecting internal dialogues. The initial hesitance faded, laughter soon returning as flavor met expectation. Martha felt as if she were standing on a precipice. Would sharing these new dishes bridge the emotional divide, or was she inadvertently deepening their fears of change? As they navigated the various healthier options, family stories started to flow, revealing reflections of their past, a tapestry of love contrasted with their often unyielding traditions. Yet beneath that surface warmth, Martha sensed lingering discomfort. Her mother, observing the dynamic, shifted in her seat, locked into a debate of her own, a generation steeped in habits resistant to change. "Can I ask why you're so eager to change everything?" she finally inquired, her tone weighted with the generations of cooking traditions clashing with Martha's modern vision. The question landed like a rock. Martha hesitated, contemplating the heart of her motivations under her family's scrutiny. She could either deflect or bare her soul. Sensing the room grew restless, she knew this was a precipice from which she must choose to leap. "Because I want our family to nurture each other, not just through traditions, but through health. I believe we can do both." Martha's conviction emanated through her words, echoing in the still air. She had finally owned her voice, but would the gravity of her revelation anchor the conversation toward healing or fracture the fragile moment they had begun to build? As she captured her family's gaze, Martha steeled herself for whatever questions or accusations might follow, poised on the edge of transformation that stretched before her. Little did she know, a deeper confrontation loomed, one that would test not just her professional aspirations, but her very identity. What core truths about herself would she uncover as the conversation pressed on? Martha felt the weight of her family's collective gaze, a mixture of curiosity and irritation swirling around the table. The air thickened with anticipation, and she recognized the nerve of each glance that awaited her next words. Her mother's expression morphed from one of apprehension to puzzlement. "It's not just about health, Martha, you know that." A nervous flutter swirled in her chest. "I do," she replied, finding her footing with intent. "It's about evolving as a family. We've always turned to food for comfort, but it doesn't have to be unhealthy. We can embrace change." Her sister's chuckle broke the tension, but it felt more like a dismissal than an endorsement. "What are we supposed to do then?"
Pretend that carbs aren't a part of our heritage? Martha inhaled deeply, fighting the impulse to retreat. "I'm not asking anyone to forget their favorite dishes. Instead, we can find a balance, discovering new flavors together while honoring the ones we love." Their reactions were mixed, as expected. Her brother nodded, intrigued, while her father's skepticism remained rigid. An uncomfortable silence hung awkwardly in the air before her mother cut in again, slicing through Martha's newfound courage. "Martha, you're not a dietitian. You're a teacher. Why play with fire in the kitchen?" Her mother's question felt like shrapnel, and Martha struggled to catch her breath. "Because I care. Because I want to do more than just teach history. I want to teach us all how to take care of ourselves and support one another. Health is part of living fully, isn't it?" Her words definitely landed on her father's ears, but they didn't seem to penetrate his stoic exterior. Instead, he glanced down at the plate before him, as if looking for answers. Martha observed the paths of engagement and retreat playing out around the table. She felt her heart race, struggling to maintain the resolve that had built up in her during this meal. "Honestly, part of me wonders if you're just trying to impress your friends with this new fad," said her sister, rolling her eyes. "Is that it? A fad?" Martha questioned, her voice wavering but her tone firm. She needed to stand her ground. "This is about leading by example. Our family has faced all kinds of health issues tied to obesity and poor eating habits. Can't we at least try?" Her sister remained unfazed. "You don't get it, do you? You're messing with our traditions." Martha felt the walls closing in, but she recognized a turning point. What her family perceived as a challenge to their traditions was in fact an opportunity to expand them. "Maybe it's time we redefine those traditions," she proposed, a flicker of hope igniting within her. "Food can be comfort without being unhealthy. We can create new memories while nurturing our bodies." The murmurs around the table softened, turning her words contemplative. She saw small shifts in their body language, a slight uncrossing of arms, a searching glance. But would it be enough to shift the conversation? As the discussion unfolded, Martha realized she had a cliff to climb. She was beginning to understand her motivations more deeply.
the fear of losing traditions didn't eclipse the profound desire to bond over new experiences. Her father finally looked up, his brow furrowed as he took a bite, chewing slowly. "This pie could use more salt," he grumbled. Yet, beneath that gruff exterior, she sensed a hint of curiosity. Martha's mind raced, fueled by a strange mix of excitement and fear. She found herself wondering if this journey of transformation was also a window into her potential.
"Martha, if you're serious about this," her brother chimed in, shifting the conversation's tone, "maybe we should turn one of these nights into a cooking session. We could all pitch in?" A collective cheer erupted, igniting a flicker of courage within Martha. The idea of collaboration stoked a fire within her, an opportunity to combine her passions for health, family, and cooking. But as she relished the glimmering path forward, doubts still lurked beneath the surface. What would the future look like amidst this blending of new and old? Could being the catalyst for change fortify or fracture her identity in this family? The nuances of her relationships danced vulnerably at the edges of her consciousness. Would fighting for her vision help her family unite or reveal irreconcilable differences? Martha took a breath, ready to plunge into this new territory of her professional aspirations and personal development. The next steps loomed heavy before her, carrying the promise of transformation. Yet nestled within her mind was one lingering question. Could she truly lead her family toward healthier habits without losing the connections that mattered most? As plates were cleared and laughter returned, Martha pondered the delicate balance between courage and comfort, yearning to bridge the widening gap between herself and the family she adored. She knew one thing for certain: the road ahead would demand more than simple recipes. It would require a recipe for love, understanding, and resilience, a journey into territories uncharted. Martha awoke the next morning with a lingering weight on her heart. The chatter from dinner still echoed in her ears, images of her family's reactions replaying like a loop. Last night had been a significant step, yet the road ahead felt murky. A sense of urgency propelled her out of bed. If she was to effectively guide her family, she needed a plan that encompassed both nutrition and connection. As she brewed her morning coffee, Martha's thoughts turned toward her classroom. Her students were often disengaged, disinterested in history lessons that didn't speak to their lives. This realization ignited a new idea within her. What if she could merge her love for teaching with her ambition to create a healthier family dynamic? After her morning ritual, she grabbed her laptop and a notepad. The first step was clear: create a project that combined history and nutrition. I envisioned a series of lessons showcasing the evolution of dietary practices across cultures. Not only could she affirm her role as a knowledgeable teacher, but she would also pave ways for discussions on healthier eating habits. As she scribbled ideas, a familiar hesitance crept in. What if her students dismissed the idea as just another classroom project? She had to illustrate the relevance, bridging the gap between history and their personal lives. Perhaps a cooking demonstration could transform abstract concepts into tangible experiences. Embedding her vision with details, Martha considered inviting her family to the school for an interactive event. They could cook together, infusing history into modern meals. Imagine her parents preparing their beloved family recipes alongside her students as they explored healthier alternatives. The thought sent a thrill through her. Collaboration might invigorate both her family and her classroom. But self-doubt crept in, a familiar specter. Would her family be open to reassessing their long-held beliefs at a public forum? And what if her students rejected the endeavor? It's a risky gamble, Martha whispered to herself. Yet wasn't every meaningful change an act of courage intertwined with uncertainty? With an inner resolve building, she began drafting an outline of her project. She meticulously noted how traditional recipes could be reimagined and dreamed up engaging activities that highlighted nutritional education. Each sentence on the page acted as a building block, reinforcing the structure of the transition she sought. After hours of brainstorming, Martha stepped back, glancing at her reflection in the window. "Could I really do this?" she questioned softly, her reflection staring back with an intensity that felt foreign yet familiar. Despite the lingering questions, a flicker of determination began to solidify. If she could write a lesson that made her students feel empowered while fostering the same in her family, she'd be crafting a legacy of health, tradition, and unity, a robust heritage that embraced the evolution she so deeply desired. However, a different concern soon surfaced. She had not solicited feedback from her family regarding last night's cooking idea. What if they felt overwhelmed or judged her initiative? These thoughts gnawed at her confidence. Perhaps an informal family meeting might help, a safe space for everyone to voice their apprehensions,
far from the heat of the kitchen, might yield valuable insights. With her plan forming into a definitive course of action, Martha grabbed her phone and texted her brother. "How about we have a family meeting this week to discuss the cooking project? Need your thoughts?" As she hit send, Martha took a deep breath, welcoming the next wave of possibilities. She felt the weight of responsibility shift. This wasn't merely about transforming family habits. This was a revelation of something deeper within herself, a burgeoning ability to lead, create, and unite. Yet a knot tightened in her stomach. What if it became increasingly clear that she was alone in this endeavor? Would her family truly rally behind her vision, or would she find herself fighting an uphill battle against both nostalgia and resistance? The tension of the unanswered questions loomed large, setting the tone for the days ahead. With a sense of anticipation tinged with apprehension, Martha prepared to face her family's reactions while delving into a well of self-discovery.
The crafting of a healthier future had begun, but what challenges awaited her along the way? Martha spent the following days continually reviewing her outline, her mind bubbling with creativity yet tangled with doubt. She would lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, imagining the cooking project in vivid detail, yet worrying about the birthplace of conflict, how her family would perceive her initiative, and whether her students would engage with the material. One evening, as she plucked at old family recipes, she stumbled across her grandmother's handwritten cookbook, the faded pages filled with memories clawed at her emotions. These recipes carried stories, culture, and love, but they also revealed the persistence of unhealthy habits. Martha's heart sank momentarily. Could familiarity be a chain that held her family back from progress? She quickly shook off the ominous thought. In her hands lay the perfect blend of innovation and tradition, a potential bridge to forge connections, not divide them. The time for the family meeting approached, and she felt a tightening in her chest. Martha had envisioned a lively discussion, her parents slicing vegetables and her brother mixing ingredients as they engaged in this pivotal plan. However, all she could feel was uncertainty. Sitting at the kitchen table, she rehearsed her pitch in her mind, like a teacher preparing for a lesson. Would they consider her ideas revolutionary, or simply dismiss them as impractical? Would they see the light like she did, or would her efforts be smothered by ingrained habits? That night, she set out to rearrange the living room, clearly marked spaces suggesting engagement and collaboration. As she draped colorful tablecloths and arranged bowls of ingredients, she chose a few of her grandmother's recipes to form the backbone of her presentation. They weren't just meals, they were dialogues between generations. Ideally, these dishes could transcend time, marrying tradition with a focus on health. The day of the meeting arrived with biting uncertainty. Martha shifted nervously on the couch, glancing at the door every time it creaked open. When her family filed in, Martha felt the haunting quiet settle. She could almost hear her heartbeat drumming against the silence. Did she miscalculate the need for this meeting? Would her family dismiss her ideas outright? "Thanks for coming," she began, her voice slightly shaky but resolute. "I wanted us to share some ideas about our cooking habits and how we might improve them together." Her mother sat back, arms crossed, scrutinizing her daughter with a guarded expression, while her father fidgeted absently with a napkin. Martha's mind raced to quell rising worries. She had to find a way to break the ice, to open the door to conversation. "I've been thinking about how food has always brought us together," she continued, her growing conviction drowning out her initial trepidation.
"But I also believe we can adapt our traditions to be healthier. It doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach. What if we explore healthier alternatives while still honoring our traditions?" Her father raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "Isn't that just a fancy way of saying things might taste bland or different?" The comment sliced through her fragile confidence, but Martha fought to maintain her composure. "I think the opposite can happen," her voice firmed up. "We can make classics become healthier while exploring new flavors and textures. Remember that kale smoothie we tried? We all liked it." Laughter erupted from her brother, a little relief dissolving the tension. Maybe if we experimented more, we could find a balance. Taking a breath, Martha pressed on, inspired by the flicker of hope. What if we focused our next family dinner on one of Grandma's recipes, but with a healthier twist? We could involve everyone, learn together, and empower one another. As the discussion flowed, she noticed shifts in her family's body language, an eagerness creeping in, a lightening of tense expressions. They began sharing their thoughts and experiences, an uncommon camaraderie surfacing, slowly but undeniably.
But just as the conversation began to gain momentum, resistance popped up again. Her mother expressed doubts about changing family traditions, stating that they've worked for years. But rather than withdraw, Martha stood her ground. It wasn't merely about change, it was about evolution, connection, and love. With a daring thought taking shape, Martha posed a challenge. How about we commit to trying one new recipe a week? That way, we can still enjoy the comfort of our old recipes while exploring fresh ideas. Her mother hesitated, but the glimmer of consideration in her eyes kept Martha's hope alive. It was more than a proposal. It was a chance to nurture deeper bonds. However, a quiet voice of uncertainty still echoed in Martha's mind. Would this newfound willingness translate into action, or was it just a momentary flicker? The tension loomed large as Martha realized she'd stepped into a labyrinth of unresolved family dynamics and clashing beliefs. The meeting had ignited somewhere between hesitation and resolution, marking the beginning of a pursuit she never anticipated. As they wrapped up, the sense of camaraderie filled the air, yet unraveling the thread of resistance would require persistent dedication. Ultimately, Martha understood she had opened a door, but lingering within her was the daunting question: could she sustain both her vision and her family's unity in the face of firmly held convictions? Gazing around the room, Martha's heart raced. The moment of true engagement was close, and the stakes had never felt higher. The path ahead was uncertain, but determination surged. Would her family not only listen, but also take action in the weeks that followed?
Days turned into weeks, and what began as one tentative family meeting evolved into a rhythm of collaboration. Martha's heart swelled with pride as they moved through their newly forged culinary journey together, a journey she'd envisioned yet felt uncertain about from the start. Every Sunday, they gathered in the kitchen, surrounded by laughter, spices, and a renewed commitment to creating dishes that married health with heritage. Martha watched her family slowly embrace the experiment. Her mother, once skeptical, transformed into the enthusiastic sous chef she had always been, chopping vegetables with newfound zeal and even voicing ideas for healthier twists on beloved dishes. The old cookbook became a shared artifact, notes and adaptations filling the margins alongside familiar recipes, each mark a testament to their joint engagement. As they delved deeper, Martha uncovered an unexpected layer of joy in this collaborative process. Her brother began experimenting with spices, turning ordinary meals into vibrant culinary adventures. Her sister introduced new dessert ideas, sweet potato brownies and avocado-based mousse, offering treats that delighted the senses without compromising health. With each successful dish, the walls of resistance crumbled just a bit more. Yet it wasn't just her family that was changing. Martha felt the shift within herself. She no longer approached meals with anxiety, but rather with excitement. Every Sunday became a canvas for blending flavors and stories, transforming Shakespearean motifs of to be or not to be into the more fitting, to adapt or not to adapt. At work, the project she had envisioned for her students also evolved. With her family's support, she organized an interactive workshop highlighting the history of food and nutrition. The energy in her classroom surged as students engaged with the material, grasping the knowledge in a way that felt relevant. It wasn't just history, it was part of their lives, and they were ready to learn what it meant to balance tradition with the realities of modern health. On the final day of the project, Martha felt pride wash over her as she teammated a collaborative meal that included both her family's traditional recipes and healthier options. The classroom buzzed with excitement, and she saw her students bond over a shared mission, creating a robust meal that celebrated both heritage and well-being. The admiration she received for her integration of the lesson into their culinary exploration solidified her faith in creating meaningful connections through food. Returning home from a successful workshop, Martha entered her quiet kitchen, reflecting on the journey they had taken. She thought about everything they had accomplished, how meals that once bore the weight of nostalgia had transformed into vessels of connection and understanding. Yet one more challenge lingered on the horizon.
The upcoming family reunion presented a perfect opportunity to showcase their efforts, an event rife with potential pitfalls, but also an open space for affirmation. Martha sought her mother's counsel. "What are your thoughts about showcasing what we've created so far at the reunion?" she asked during one of their Sunday sessions, checking in on how far they'd come. "It feels like an opportunity to unite our family with the new traditions we've built." Her mother's expression shifted from weariness to contemplation. "It could be a lovely way to engage our family, but are you ready to face their reactions? Some may be resistant to this change." "Absolutely," Martha affirmed, her determination crystal clear. "But I think it's a chance to share how we've evolved without forcing anyone. This is about nourishing our connections, not tearing them down." What she spoke felt like essential truth.
a realization that transcended just food. As the reunion approached, Martha coordinated with her family, the anticipation palpable. Their infused recipes stood ready: quinoa stuffed peppers, sweet potato casserole, and avocado guacamole nestled next to traditional favorites. She could feel the tide of nervous energy building within her. Finally, the day arrived, and when Martha entered the gathering space, the sight felt surreal. Long tables were adorned with dishes from past generations, and her family's innovative creations, scattered like a tapestry woven from rich history and fresh ideas. Laughter and chatter filled the air, embodying the love that had always defined their family. Though ready, a tremor of anxiety coursed through her. The moment to reveal their culinary journey approached, as her family gathered around the food. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what could lie ahead. "Everyone," she called out, the room gradually quieting. "We've brought something special today, a blend of old and new. We invite you to taste what we've been working on, an exploration of both heritage and health." As she unveiled their creations, a mixture of curious glances and skeptical stares met her invitation. Yet as family members began serving themselves, a lightness drifted into the atmosphere. Conversations unfolded around her, a cascade of memories and laughter suspended between excitement and apprehension. Martha stood back, heart pounding yet hopeful, watching as her relatives debated new flavors and sought familiar comforts in harmony. When her mother scooped a generous serving of the quinoa stuffed peppers, a wave of encouragement washed over Martha. There was acceptance. Her family seemed ready to lean into this experiment, tasting the future while honoring the past. As the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating their kitchen with remnants of warmth, Martha finally understood what she had fought for. She had not just reshaped recipes, she had nurtured transformation, cultivating connections through resilience, creativity, and love.
The night cascaded forward, filled with discoveries and laughter, as discussions flowed naturally, bridging generations. Martha felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This evening was monumental. She had successfully invited her family into a narrative of growth, learning, and acceptance. As the hugs, compliments, and joyous laughter carried through the air, it became apparent to Martha. She had achieved something she once thought impossible. From redefining food's role within her family to intertwining her professional life, she had truly transformed not just her kitchen, but her heart. Balancing the legacies of the past with a vision for the future, she had forged a new path forward, one filled with exploration, possibility, and love. Now was the moment to bask in fulfillment while looking ahead, knowing that the journey would continue. Each week, each meal was now a canvas for collaboration, an evolving legacy of both history and health. And to the audience, this story of personal transformation demands your engagement. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire your own journey of change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about Martha's journey. Your voice is important. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. The power of personal growth is meant to be shared. Don't wait even one more second to share this transformative story.